What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as always, I like to say in 2022, 2021, and this is the last year, 2023, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. So as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And we are broadcasting live on the last day of December in the last month of 2023, December 31st. Yes, get one more epic conversation in before the end of the year. And we are here on Black Canada Talking, where wonderful people provide their comments, thoughts, POVs on stories of importance of them to them around the world, around their neighborhood, around their country, but even just to them. So back again for the last time this year, but we are never unhappy when but we are always happy, when he is here. We're unhappy when he isn't here, but we are back again with Cesar Ndema-Moussa. What is up, Cesar?
Dr. Vibe, how are you? Hello, my people.
Outstanding. How's your holiday season been?
Well, I'll be honest with you. There were some downsides because of health reasons. I managed to listen to this one because I discovered this 2 weeks ago. Dr. Vibe, have you ever had gout?
I haven't, but you know what? A number of years ago, I was having some challenges with my toe on my right foot.
Mm-hmm.
And initially people say, yeah, you probably, do you have gout? Yeah. And I didn't, but what actually happened was the big toe on my right foot, I had arthritis.
Well, gout is a form of arthritis.
Okay, well, there you go.
But you remember the pain.
Oh, you know what? I never, people have to realize when you have both your feet or you have your feet and they're working well, feel blessed, because we take those things for granted. Oh, it was painful. But sorry, what happened? What's going on with you?
Well, long story short, first time I got diagnosed with gout was in 2015, and at the time I did eat a lot of red meat. I've never had alcohol, so alcohol was never a culprit.
Right.
But indeed, red meat. But the last few years that I've had gouts, it didn't make sense in terms of, red meat eating and definitely not alcohol. But then the last episode 2 weeks ago, it was discovered why. It's actually from me doing cardio in the gym.
No.
Overtraining on the treadmill led to me damaging my ankle.
Yep.
And the swelling on my ankle led to an infection and swelling on my foot, which led to gout. So,
wow.
I am telling you, I was quite in pain, and I had 3 different professionals basically confirm this. Now, when I say confirm, I didn't know. They're the ones what has happened, right? But other than that, honestly, the health is better, the family is better, and of course, we look forward to the new year being in better health. And because I never want to forget, I want to wish happy Kwanzaa to all our brothers and sisters, Canada, the US, all the way down to Brazil, in Europe, Africa, and worldwide. Today is a day of Kumba, aka creativity, and let us uphold the values, the tradition, the history, the culture of not only African Americans, from where Kwanzaa began, but also truly of Pan-Africanism, because Kwanzaa, it's non-religious, but it's definitely identity-based. So happy Kwanzaa, my sisters, my brothers, young and old, and whatever the beautiful shade of blackness you walk in.
You always encourage, enlighten, generate conversation with when I'm in presence of you. Do you feel that, it's a general question, that Blacks are respecting, I don't want to say the word celebrate, I'm saying respecting Kwanzaa?
How can I put it? Unfortunately, 60 years later, we still live in the truth of what Frantz Fanon talked about regarding for far too many blacks, enslaved, colonized minds, the dream is to live the white master's life. So such a thing as Kwanzaa for far too many blacks and notably Africans. I mean, we can talk about how, it's disconnected to them, but for far too many blacks, Kwanzaa is not something real compared to celebrating Christmas or doing Ramadan, or as we see far too many brothers discovering and pretending to be either Jews or pretending to be the indigenous Indians of this continent. We have to do, and it's an excellent question, because I was actually having this conversation with a Christian brother from the continent.
Yeah.
Who basically told me, it was a nice compliment, but he said I should become Minister of Decolonization of Africa. But
okay. Why do I feel I would have loved to just listen to that conversation?
But what I told him is that you have to understand that for colonization, as slavery and Abrahamic religions to be grounded in Africa and to have the stronghold they have, it took a strong institution to impose them. And as such, it requires a strong institution to uproot them and uplift African spirituality. And I give you an example that I was made aware of today. It's about, and sometimes we talk about, you know me, I talk about entertainment, consumerism, and religion being the answers of the Black community. Today I was made aware of, and it's not to criticize them, it's a bigger conversation than the individual I'm going to name. Magic Johnson spending $7.5 million on vacation over 2 weeks with his family and friends.
Wow.
Imagine if that money and that time had been spent kind of like Brother Samuel L. Jackson. We see the photos of him having done his DNA ancestry test, and flying to Gabon wearing a traditional outfit of the Fang people and showing his pride of returning to his roots. Imagine $7.5 million in 2 months. Oh, people will say, Cesar, you're hating. The man is a billionaire. He's enjoying his time. I'm like, of course he is. How can I hate? I don't know him. I'm happy for him. I advocate for HIV, AIDS. I totally support Magic Johnson, although I've never been a Lakers fan, but I'm happy for the man to be happy. I had to throw that in there. But what I mean is that mindset in regards to the lack of an institution such as the African Union that doesn't have the weight it should have, but the lack of an institution requires the uplifting by individuals that in our Black community, more often than not, tend to be entertainment elites, to bring themselves forward in terms of saying, why is it that today, the last of the year, me, Cesar, I'm being made aware that Magic Johnson spent $7.5 million on 2 weeks of family vacation. Imagine what it would have been like, and the conversation we'll be having if it was instead Magic Johnson, Kwanzaa, let us celebrate our roots, let us celebrate our African spirituality. Here are a couple of millions of dollars to uplift some Black community, disenfranchised worldwide, etc., etc. It's that I'm talking about time and again, because what kind of message does this send our people? And I mean, of course, he didn't spend his vacation going to some Black country in the Caribbean or in Africa. You see what I mean? So it's not like, sure, I'm sure he employed some Black staff. But that $7.5 million, was it spent into Black economics? Was it spent into uplifting X amount of Black families? That kind of mindset is part of Kwanzaa. Let's not forget, there is a day of Kwanzaa that's about cooperative economics. You see what I mean? So all of these elements, it's about the spirituality. Kwanzaa is a name by itself, but Kwanzaa speaks to what it is all about in terms of our Blackness, to rise anew and to be not respected by others, but for us to respect ourselves. What kind of message does this send when our Black youth keeps saying are rich and famous, spending all that money on luxury vacations, on cars, on big houses, and they don't see them taking off the weaves, they don't see them putting on the traditional outfits. They don't see them having the black and strong and proud militant speech. They don't see them honoring the ancestors. And I don't mean ancestors, you gotta go necessarily to ancient Egypt. Africa is not ancient Egypt. It's ancient Egypt, Kemet, that was in Africa. But what about the ancestors from just 60 years ago? The civil rights leaders, the Nelson Mandela, the Bantu Biko. What
Mhm.
about the W.E.B. Du Bois, the Marcus Garvey? Our black youth and black adults don't see them. So by default, they keep saying Jesus. They keep saying Allah. They keep suddenly discovering that we're the real Jews. You're not the real Jews. They keep suddenly discovering that we're the original natives, Indians of this land. You are not. It's a lie. So we become comfortable with lies because we are deep down, we have inferiority complexes
Mm.
because we don't have those who should be at the forefront. The whole, we can talk about it at length in another time, but the whole Jewish movement of Zionism and Jewish identity, no matter how one wants to decry it in regards to Palestine and whatever you want to call it, but that movement of Zionism would not have been possible with the Jewish elites putting in money, putting in the mindset, putting in the efforts to uplift the people out of the bottom where they were in European society for the vast majority of them. AKA, the term ghetto did not apply to black people until the 1960s. Watch any documentary about World War II. When they're talking about ghetto, they're not talking about black neighborhoods. They're talking about the Warsaw Ghetto. They're talking, you read Shakespeare. When he's talking about the ghetto, he's not talking about Jewish people living in Venice. He's not talking about black people living in Venice. He's talking about Jewish people. So that uplifting that comes from the elites to bring up those at the bottom. That's what we need. Just like that picture of Malcolm X, just as Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, Maya Angelou, those pictures of them in Ghana.
Mm.
Imagine if Magic Johnson had spent his 2 weeks, $7.5 million as a new billionaire, aka the fourth billionaire athlete, after MJ, Tiger Woods, and LeBron James, the fourth billionaire athlete. Imagine if he had spent those vacations somewhere in Africa in connection with his ancestry DNA test and uplifting so many families and etc. etc. We would be having a very, very different conversation. So anyone who wants to think, Cesar, you're hating, Cesar, it's his vacation, it's his money, blah, 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 blah. Imagine if you had done otherwise, like I'm saying.
Excellent. Well, before we go any further, as always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Hit the subscribe and the notification button. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Also, to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I produce on, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And I'll be not remiss to say, hey, if you want to get in contact with Cesar, there's his contact information. I will also be sharing it on all the platforms that you can watch this either live or on the replay. So let's get to our first conversation topic today. Nikki Haley, who is getting a little bit of a bump in regards to popularity amongst Republicans. I don't know how much that real it is, but you want to talk about Nikki Haley and something about omission of slavery.
Well, Dr. Vibe, the fact that a former governor of South Carolina and a former ambassador to the United Nations, so a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, was asked a simple question in terms of what the Civil War was about, and she fumbled on not mentioning slavery as a cause of the Civil War. How can I put it? I'm not offended. First of all, allow me to be careful here. I don't have any bone in this conversation in principle as I'm not African American, but because I'm black, I definitely do. Because let us never forget that uh, when white supremacists come, and I'm not just talking about police brutality, but I'm talking throughout all institutions. When white supremacy comes, they don't inquire if one is a descendant of slavery or a descendant of colonization. You're black, you will be a victim, period. So regarding Nikki Haley, what really happens is that her omission was not an accident. And I really remind black people not to take offense in the sense of how could she, or even to think that she's ignorant. No. Um, I watched some interviews, notably by a sister. I apologize, I forgot her name, but I believe she is the Democratic Party president in South Carolina. I might be wrong, but she was in interview with our sister A.B. Phillip of CNN, in which
Yes.
she said it's not the first time that Nikki Haley leaves addressing slavery out of in the context of the Civil War. The plain truth is that she didn't forget. She just chooses not to mention it because it's not in her interest. It's not in her interest in regards to that white fan base, white voting base, sorry, notably those Trump supporters in the Republican Party who absolutely uh, are raised in a culture that the Civil War was about states' rights and is about their culture. When truthfully, it was about slavery. Yes, one can make the argument, no, Cesar, it was about states' right, or it was about the shifting of a slave-based economy to a capitalist, aka factory-based economy. But ultimately, what was the fuel to that new economy? What was the very center of the debate among states' rights, time and again on both sides of the argument? The central factor was Black Lives Matter, aka Slaves Lives Matter, aka are we men or are we slaves? And as such, here what we have to understand regarding Nikki Haley, and I say this very importantly for our Black people to understand. Do not be fooled by the name. Nikki Haley, very white Anglo-Saxon sounding name, is actually of Indian origin,
Yeah.
Nimrata.
Yeah. South
So
Asian. Yep. Yep.
South
Yep.
Asian from India, and I'm talking Aryan India, aka the white people of India. We have to understand, my black people, and as I add this, because there is a connection to Canada, her father was a professor in Canada before they moved to the US. So before they moved to the US where she was born. So it's important for our black people to really understand that here, when we talk about white supremacy, it is not exclusive to the notion of Europeans or just Americans. It is truly a global aspect where, even in terms of uh, her country of origin, aka India, we have heard about the fate of Dravidians, aka the indigenous black Indians. We have heard about the fate of the Dalit, those at the bottom of the caste system. I have told you about the fate of the Sidis, the descendants of slavery from Africa in India. And also I told you about the fate of African immigrant, notably students in India. Time and again, you see the manifestations of white supremacy in the denial of black lives, in the denial of black realities and black history. So Nikki Haley, it was purely an electoral move to fumble and talk her way in avoiding saying the capital word, aka slavery, because many, not few, many of those who will be voting for her don't like to be addressed in regards to any notion of white shame, of white guilt, and simply of racism. Because that's what it is. Slavery in the United States was not about enslaving anyone or whoever. It became, as we know, notably in terms of, I think, Virginia 1619,
Yep.
it became about enslaving the African. The African who became the Negro, who became the Black American, And today we talk about the African American. So no, Nikki Haley clearly identifies with white supremacy. Just a reminder that she was not exactly proactive in removing statues of Confederacy leaders.
Mm-hmm.
It took many protests. And I am not one to support cancel culture, but we wouldn't imagine in any Western nation, notably Germany, standing statues of Nazi leaders. So how can we justify in a democracy and a land that claims all men are born free and equal and etc. etc. Why are we having standing statues of Confederacy leaders who fought to maintain the institution of slavery? It is absolutely um, uh, abhorrent, and just as it is abhorrent for her to be basically fumbling by choice and even trying to backpedal and explain. No, it's just constant fumble after fumble. It wasn't in her voting interest in regards to who votes for her. So, my salutations to all those black Trump fans and black Republicans. Again, you get the reminder that your votes don't matter. You are not a target demographics for these people who are Trump loyalists, who don't dare to attack Trump, because ultimately they uphold white supremacy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the Republicans are these evil white people and the Democrats are these nice white people. No, they uphold white supremacy more openly and more overtly than the opponents of the Democrat Party.
Okay. Well, before we go to break, I think I'd also maybe do some. I'm just going to read the story that's on the screen here if you're watching live on the replay about. So it's from CBS News. Nikki Haley defends leaving slavery out as a cause of the Civil War after backlash. This story is from December 28th, which is a few days ago, and from Republican candidate, presidential candidate Nikki Haley on Thursday sought to defend earlier comments that failed to mention slavery as a cause of the Civil War as she received backlash on social media. Quote, I mean, of course, the Civil War was about slavery, unquote, Haley said on the Pulse of New Hampshire radio program, Good Morning NH with Jack Heath. Quote, we know that's the easy part of it. What I was saying was, what does it mean to us today? What it means to us today is about freedom, unquote. That's what it's all about. It was all about individual freedom. It was about economic freedom. It was about individual rights, unquote, she said. Quote, what was the cause of the United States Civil War? Unquote. A male attendee asked Haley during a town hall on Wednesday night in Berlin, New Hampshire. The former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations appeared to be taken back by the question and paused before answering. Quote, well, don't come with an easy question, unquote, Haley joked. Quote, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run the freedoms and what people could do and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was, unquote? The questioner, who later identified himself to reporters off camera as Patrick, immediately shot back at Haley, saying he's not the one running for president. Haley attempted to further elaborate her response, but still with no mention of slavery. Quote, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are, unquote, Haley said. Quote, and I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life, unquote. When the voter followed up with Haley on why she wasn't mentioning slavery, in her response, she asked, quote, what do you want me to say about slavery, unquote. Haley said on Thursday she thought the question was definitely planted by the Democrats to trip her up. Quote, the same reason he didn't tell the reporters what his name was, the reason he went and showed the guy to me that he was the tweet that went after he did it, unquote. Haley said, quote, we see these guys when they come in, we know what they're doing, unquote. Haley's exchange was met with some applause from the town's hall's audience. However, the criticism was almost immediate, with many taking social media to react, including President Biden, who tweeted late Wednesday, quote, it was all about slavery, unquote. Quote, This isn't hard. Condemning slavery is a baseline for anyone who wants to be president of the United States. But Nikki Haley and the rest of the MAGA GOP are choking on the words, trying to rewrite history, unquote, said Jamie Harrison, the chairman of the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, in a statement to CBS after the town hall. The confrontation comes amid Haley's growing momentum in New Hampshire, with the latest poll showing she's been gaining on former President Trump, showing something no other Republican president candidate has been able to do in the Granite State. Earlier this month, she was endorsed by Republican New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu. Throughout her campaign, Haley has championed South Carolina's 2015 removal of the Confederate state flag on the state house grounds under her tenure as governor. The removal came under the wake of 2015 mass shooting at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, in which a white supremacist killed 9 Black people. As part, so we could go on further, but I think I got the gist of the story there. So,
if I can add,
oh, sure.
And if I can add, it's very important that we understand something. So here is Nikki Haley who fumbled by choice, to not say slavery, but the larger conversation is actually one where we notably notice a certain Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, on a apparent war against wokeness, and in doing such, banning or editing books that notably address race relations in America, just as well in Texas under Governor Greg Abbott. It's important to understand it's a larger conversation in which Black narratives, Black realities, addressing systemic racism, work in terms of EDI is being challenged. There's a pushback, there's a whitelash, and as such, the very rewriting, aka the whitewashing of history, because of changing demographics, because of changing geopolitics, because of a growth of Black consciousness, notably amid the George Floyd murder and amid so many issues as revealed by COVID regarding systemic inequalities. It's a larger conversation beyond just Nikki Haley.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with 2 more stories. You're watching Black Canada Talking with Cesar Ndema-Moussa and also Dr. Vibe. Keep it locked. We'll be back in 90 seconds. We'll have more great conversation topics on Black Canada Talking.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harriet Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harriet Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the just people that, don't always represent the best of us, the diversity, like people like Dr. Vibe. Like, everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people. Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back, helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
Okay, we're back on Black Canada Talking, and always a big shout out to Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. You are watching Black Canada Talking, last episode of 2023, December 31st. We are in the house. Want to shout out to JJ Mars. Good afternoon, JJ Mars, who is become a supporter of the Dr. Vibe, whatever I'm doing through Dr. Boyce's platform. So welcome, JJ Mars, as always. If you have any comments, questions, please put them in the chat and Cesar will definitely respond. So let's go to our next conversation piece. France's law on immigration. And it's interesting, before we came online today, for those who do not know, Cesar hails from Cameroon. And I was telling him I met a wonderful young gentleman today from Cameroon. But one of the things that's really interesting, I think it's a future conversation topic on Black Canada Talking, especially, is the increase in immigration, especially from African countries into Canada, and the impact, and some would say the lack of attention and action that's being given, especially compared to other countries' immigrants that come to Canada. But Cesar, we're going to focus on France. Go ahead.
Well, and I mean, you did make the link in terms of Canada, and Canada's U.S. One can easily notice that immigration is being furthermore a topic of conversation, really all over the Western world. Nations that are facing declining birth rates, aging populations, so need for new blood, aka workers that come from other countries, notably to help with taxation, but also help with the maintaining of infrastructures and basically labor. What you end up having with France is a particular case. So, as you said rightfully, I'm born in Cameroon, but I grew up in France and Canada. And as an adult, I chose to live and stay here in Canada. So I came back to Canada at 19 for that purpose. But what you have with France has certain particularities in terms of Europe. It is the European country with the largest Arab, first of all, not Arab, Maghrebi, Northern African and Muslim population, the country with the largest Black population, and unless I'm mistaken, also the country with the largest Jewish population, at least for Western Europe. So what you end up having here with immigration law in France is that a lot of whites, a growing number of whites, and let me be careful here, I'm not saying that they're racist per se, but they are feeling that the countries are changing and changing for the worse. They're not recognizing the countries anymore. There is a growth of white identity crisis. And very easily, many of these white populists, I give you an example here, in Canada, the US, the example will be a certain Jordan Peterson. Those whites will intellectualize white supremacy rhetoric along with anti-immigration and the upholding of Christian values, etc., are looking at blaming the immigrants, aka the foreigner, aka the non-white, for not integrating properly into white Judeo-Christian Greco-Roman society and values. What you end up having here is that France law on immigration that came at just a few weeks ago literally speaks to it's not so much that it's a tightening on immigration laws, because absolutely every country has and should have a say in terms of proper immigration. So I'm not here speaking in terms of open borders, anyone comes in, anyone, including criminals. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. I'm talking here in terms of addressing immigration from lenses of identity in terms of white supremacy, while at the same time, as we see in France, one of the things that happened, a refusal to address systemic inequalities in society, historic consequences from slavery and colonization that basically make it that you end up having so many of the foreigners here meaning Blacks who are born in France, so the French, but because they're Black, they're still seen as foreigners, whether they be second or third generation. Basically, what are the challenges to their integration? Let's not forget that this summer there were violent riots in France following the shooting death by police of a teenager who was driving without a license. I am absolutely not condoning the shooting by police of anyone who didn't deserve it, just as I'm not condoning a teenager driving without a license. Of course not. But it's to understand the climate of tension regarding social issues, regarding race and racism. And as such, it is on the background of such issues that you end up having these immigration laws, just as is happening in these very countries, notably in the US, when we talk about the Mexican border, but even here in Canada, when we had Chemin Roxham, Roxham Road, regarding Quebec and the arrival, notably of Haitians. Just as when we talk about the whole question of refugees, who basically gets the red carpet? People from Ukraine. On this side of the ocean, just as in Europe. And I'd say it again, that's a good thing. But it's a good thing that proves that others can also get that welcome. Welcome, not just a matter of red carpet, but in terms of addressing housing, education, and employment. So if countries as Canada and European countries in the US are able to do that for Ukrainian refugees, how come they can't do that for those who have darker skin, especially those who are Black? How come, it's a larger conversation where absolutely a country has to define the immigration laws. I'll give you a very concrete example here. Italy is governed right now by its most right-wing government since 1945 and the fall of Benito Mussolini, the fascist leader. How right-wing is this government? It is a fascist government by its own Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, who herself admits very publicly that she's a fan of Mussolini. And yet, even in the restriction of immigration laws in Italy, aka, we've heard in 2023, so it's pretty much been 10 years, the Mediterranean deaths, Lampedusa, so many Africans, but also Afghans, also people from Turkey, people from Central Asia and North Africa, landing on Italian shores. Even amidst those restrictions on immigration laws, she ended up admitting that Italy needs close to 500,000 of newcomers/immigrants for its labor force because of its aging population, aka the second oldest aging population in the world after Japan. France is notably hit by issues of terrorism when, notably in the context of Israel and Hamas/Palestine conflict, radicalized Muslims, but also people taking advantage, opportunistic killers, taking advantage of tensions, just as of news media, to commit crimes. It matters to address immigration, but you can never succeed addressing immigration if you refuse to address integration. And this is where the failure of France is. And that failure will be seen as well in our countries here on this side of the ocean, in Canada and the United States. I mean, let's not forget a certain Donald Trump talking about building a wall. And he was there for 4 years. There's no wall that got built. You can blame Biden all you want. But the truth of the matter is that the amount of people that are coming in, and notably immigrants being taken into democratic cities as New York, if you fail at addressing integration, whether we're talking about France and Italy, or we're talking about Canada and the US, or notably the United Kingdom, you basically are having a ticking time bomb due to systemic inequalities, failure of integration, failure of addressing historical and social wounds that stem from failed immigration policies.
Excellent. Excellent. Just want to shout out Dr. Tachi. What is up, Dr. Tachi? Dr. Tachi is a host of Mediascope, which is on a little bit of sabbatical, I just found out right now. But when it is back, I believe in mid-February of 2024, it's the livest online show about media, tech, and pop culture on Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Instagram Live, and then 6 p.m. on Wednesdays on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and other platforms. And also I'm speaking on January 8th. She'll be launching January 8th, 2024, Indie Soup Media. Wow, brand new content providers network. And it'll be featuring at least over 30 plus content creators. And the reach of the network is over 1 million people out of the box. So good to hear from Dr. Tatu. Before we continue on, I just want to ask a little bit further on this subject. What will French's law on immigration will have on Africans, Black Africans?
Well, very unfortunately, and that's an excellent question, and I didn't address that enough. Very unfortunately, it's very perverse what happens regarding Africans. On one side, you have a lot of Africans, aka nationals from former French colonies, will try their hardest to come to France illegally. I'm not talking here about those who migrate rightfully, notably, with student visas, etc. I'm talking about those who immigrate illegally to France to take advantage of social services, and that has also been tightened with these immigration laws. But at the same time, the perverse effect is that the mismanagement of African countries is creating a very serious brain drain out of Africa that is enriching Western nations. People will basically become trained on scientific, medical, technical matters, expertise in Africa, aim at going to countries such as France in order to get better salaries and in order to get better living conditions. And again, it speaks to the very nature of the relation in terms of Western countries leaning further and further towards right-wing policies amid identity crisis and rising white supremacy, but also African countries being mismanaged. I mean, there comes upon a time the excuses of slavery and colonization only go so far, but being mismanaged, ruled by president dictators who accumulate wealth and nepotism, and as such creating hard and harder living conditions. I see these two poles coming together and creating further inequalities and clashes that will further impact the average Black person.
Okay, good stuff. JJ Mars has a comment here. I'm curious if either one of you are familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson here in America and his political theories on Black Americans. I am very familiar, and I know that, and both of us are very familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson. Absolutely. Absolutely. Big time, big time.
And it goes back to, as he was saying, political, socioeconomical theories. It goes back to the very conversation we had at the very beginning regarding Magic Johnson spending $7.5 million on 2 weeks vacation, but is that benefiting Black communities and Black countries? So if our elites don't have the Black consciousness mindset to uplift the masses, what can we really expect from Black countries, whether they be in Africa or the Caribbean? And as such, what should we ever expect from white countries, Western countries, and countries worldwide where there is ongoing anti-Black racism? We become our own worst enemy while we're pointing at others.
Good point. All right, let's move on to our last conversation topic today. Actually, there's just a comment came up here. Okay. JJ Mars says Dr. Anderson's theory seems to be applicable to what Black people in white countries on a global scale. Absolutely. Don't disagree on that at all. Absolutely. Let's move to our last conversation piece today. Pope Francis's blessing on same-sex couples and the reactions of African Catholic leaderships. Go away.
Brother Dr. Vibe, it's a very short conversation here in alienation and basically all that, and I keep saying it, and this is really the topics that we have addressed. The three cancers of the Black psyche are entertainment, aka excess of entertainment, consumerism, and religion, aka white religions among Black people. This is a perfect example of how the Vatican, aka Pope Francis, aka Catholicism, a man-made, created religion, as all religions without exception strive to adapt, to survive, to keep growing. And as such, what ends up happening as we are in 2023, the former Jesuit priest, cardinal, who became pope, is issuing blessing for same-sex couples, as long as not, of course, in the context of an official marriage, because marriage is between a man and a woman, but still, blessing for same-sex couples in the Catholic Church. You know, the Catholic Church, which in Europe has lost a lot of churchgoers and is living a crisis of vocation. People, aiming to become priests and nuns since the Vatican II Council of the early 60s. So what ends up happening is pretty much that this Pope is doing what he feels needs to be done to keep an ever-losing number of Catholics coming to church, contributing in tithes, being present in Catholic life. And what we end up seeing is that in countries of Africa, such as Nigeria, the country of Africa that, to give you some perspective, Brazil has the giant statue of Christ the Redeemer in the Bay of Rio. In Nigeria, you have a giant statue of white Jesus. We have these African countries as Nigeria, and let me get some other names here. I just want to make sure, because it's not just in Nigeria. I can't remember all the countries, but there are a couple of countries, Nigeria, I believe Guinea. I know of Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, there you go. Angola, Kenya, Nigeria, Malawi, Sao Tome and Principe, Uganda, Zimbabwe, but also Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, where Catholic clerics have vowed not to support this rule because this notion of same-sex couples is un-African to the identity of the churchgoers. Is Christianity African? Is Catholicism African? You basically have these African clerics, church leaders, cardinals, bishops, and priests who are only Christians because of colonization, because of slavery. And here they are wanting to stand up to the master, to the boss, to the head priest, aka the Pope, in the Vatican, in Rome, in Italy. When it comes to Africa, like he did, was it 2 years ago, after he came to Canada to apologize to the indigenous, he went to Congo and he was hailed as a rock star. So you basically have these African clerics saying that they will not uphold this, while admitting that it cannot go against the decision of the Pope as head of the Catholic Church. So this is a great hypocrisy and a great conversation that notably Africans, but truthfully Black people, must have in regards to adhering to religions that are not Black, to spirituality that fundamentally go against who we are. And when I'm saying who we are, I'm not saying who we are in terms of homosexuality not being African. No. There's homosexuality in Africa, and it's natural among humans just as among animals. It does exist. But even the white anthropologists and the white missionaries were not able to find that the white, as we are in the spirit of Kwanzaa, tomorrow being day 7 of Kwanzaa, Imani, faith, dare to return to the spirituality of our ancestors, dare to return to the spirituality of those who came before us, who stood up, who resisted, who were the first builders, the first mathematicians, the first geniuses, the first, the first of so many things. And I'm being careful here. So then what happened? Many things happened. Many tragedies happened. But what needs to no longer happen is the ongoing of slavery and colonization through the perpetuation. And you can see here with my sweater, Kemet, you know, the ankh that I wear. We don't have to perpetuate the ideologies that chained us in the bodies under slavery and colonization, and that keep chaining us mentally under the guise of integration, but as well systemic racism.
Okay.
It's a beautiful illustration of that hypocrisy.
JJ Mars asked, did you mention Brazil?
And I should mention Brazil, Candomblé. I should mention Zumbi dos Palmares. I should mention the very fact of, 10 times more Africans were kidnapped and enslaved in Brazil. And, the capital of Black Brazil, Salvador da Bahia. It is very much a Black consciousness that must rise and exit these religions, because the ideology of religion, notably in teaching Blacks to turn the other cheeks, is a fundamental factor in inferiority complexes, as we see since the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education, and how time and again Black children will be more attracted to whiteness, whether it be in terms of white dolls or it be as not all, too many athletes, white women, but as well Black men as Black women trying to live life according to the white Western lens of capitalism, consumerism, entertainment, etc. I mean, you hear it all the time. Black people talking about the great travels and all that, but how many of them talk about traveling to Africa? I mean, more and more, yes, are getting that Black consciousness, and we need more and more. But in this century, this 21st century, that by 2050, if not 2100, all statistics speak to the fact that 1/3 of humans, 1 out of 3 humans will be African. I didn't say Black, I said African. So add the Blacks in Brazil, who actually are half of Black people in the Americas are in Brazil. Add all those Black people in Europe and around the world, including Black Asians, indigenous Black people in Asia. We need to make sure that we do have that Black consciousness. This is not some anti-white or anti-Asian rhetoric, no. But you cannot justify that the house of the neighbor is on fire. You're going to go care for them. You're going to go throw water to the fire, but you choose to neglect your own house that's burning with your family inside. You don't want to fix your mess, but you're caring about the messes of others. As we see now, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Black people, many Black people know what's going on over there. They're taking sides. They're protesting. How many of them were protesting for Haiti, for Congo? How many of them know about the situation of Black people in Brazil? How many of them know about the situation of Black people in India, in Australia? These are the issues that we must address. That's why I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm not a Pan-Africanist against others. I'm a Pan-Africanist for us, by us.
Okay, good stuff. So JJ Mars says China is planning the same process for Africa, but he meant planning.
Yeah. No, absolutely. More and more, so I'm going to say it in French because the term is in French. There's a change from France-Afrique to Chine-Afrique. France-Afrique, which is French neo-colonization of Africa. Chine-Afrique, aka Chinese neo-colonization of Africa, notably through loan payments and debts, but as well the buying of lands, agricultural lands.
Yeah,
millions of miles of good soil, lands, rare earth and minerals being owned by China in Africa, when you cannot imagine an African country owning lands in China for the sake of Africans. We are our own worst enemy. We are in 2023. It's not 1923 under colonization. It's not 1823 or 1723 under slavery. It is not the 8th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, etc. centuries under Arab Muslim rule. It is us right now with mental chains who are contributing to our own demise, and then looking at our youth and children wondering what's wrong with them. And I mean, throughout the whole world, Black people are the only people who are seen and heard calling themselves by the N-word that was used to enslave and colonize them. And then we wonder why others look down on us. While for far too many of us, when we look at ourselves in the mirror, and I mean the mirror of our consciousness, it comes with inferiority complexes.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem. Well, Cesar, as we wind up here, you've given us some thoughts about what are you think some of the things you're looking at from either a Black Canadian lens or Pan-African lens in 2024. I'll just put in something really quick that I have a few we're going to be talking more about in the new year, the dispute between Guyana and Venezuela.
I am absolutely aware. And this is just, I mean, let's not say too much. Let's leave it for 2024.
Yeah. But what other things that you're looking on the horizon for 2024? What sort of things or what are you wishing for, hoping for? What do you want to see improvement in when it comes to Pan-Africanism and Blackism?
Very honestly, I will repeat what I've already said, what I say almost anytime I have the opportunity to speak. My dear Black people, as painful it must be to hear, as much as some hate to hear it, as much as many will challenge me on this, the three cancers of the Black psyche are entertainment, consumerism, and religion. We must address and tackle them. There is no savior or messiah coming for us. There is no magic, etc. I mean, we live in a world where those who are powerful, I'm talking individuals just as communities and nations, have undermined the potential of a nuclear World War III, have undermined space exploration and colonization of Mars, have undermined the potential of invasion by aliens. Meanwhile, we are a Black community where the vast majority, maybe I shouldn't say the vast majority, I apologize. Too many of us, the mindset is focused on the weekend and the next party. That is a fundamental problem that speaks to our priorities, and then we have the hypocrisy towards ourselves to wonder what's wrong with our youth. Meanwhile, we have toxic entertainers that we put in their faces as role models. Meanwhile, we show them that we value the very brands that clearly say that they don't make the products for Black people, and yet we claim to own them. And we call one another by insulting words as the N-word, while those who died for us called each other brothers and sisters. Black consciousness is not to rise just in terms of speech. Black consciousness is to rise in terms of concrete actions, in terms of, all these Black churches. What's the bank that owned them? How many of them are owned by Black banks? It's white banks. So the tithes and the taxes are going to the same white community that we complain about white supremacy. Meanwhile, where's the Black hospital? Where are the Black food sources? Black owned. It's great that we have BET now being owned again by a Black man, Tyler Perry. But my question is,
but no, I have to correct you. That sale did not go through, by the way.
Are you serious?
It did not go through.
Thank you for correcting me.
No problem. It did not go through.
Wow, there you go. So let me go back to
Viacom pulled back on that.
So you see what I mean? So we don't control. I mean, Kwanzaa is not celebrated by most Black people. but we need to basically address all of this in terms of bringing forth a new 2024. Whether it's talking about a 2-year-old like I have, or a 20-year-old, but even a 40-year-old,
50, 60, 70,
50, 60, 70.
80.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's never too late to wake up. It's our
Mm.
ancestors, African American leaders, 100 years ago. I really mean 100 years ago, in 2023. So this was in the 1920s. It's African American leaders who talked about being woke. We must dare to be woke. Forget what white supremacists like to talk about wokeness. No, we must dare to be woke, to awaken and rise in the spirit of Kwanzaa, in the spirit of Kemet and the Ankh, in the spirit of Pan-Africanism and Black liberation worldwide. Brother Vibe, I'm aware of the time.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm more worried time of you on your end. I leave it open for you, but you have some things you got to get to. But I just want to say thank you again for making another great year through your thoughts, your heart, your passion. I always tell people I always like to celebrate wins, and a nice one I had this year was finally meeting this gentleman face to face and spending a few moments with him, and it's made our bond closer, and our relationship is getting deeper and closer. And I'm doing my best to actually look at this. JJ Mar says, great discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, JJ. Thank you. Really appreciate your support on that. And I mentioned to Cesar before we came on live, I'm working on something to have him share his thoughts to empower people that don't know about him. And I say the word yet. So we do whatever. So again, I want to say blessings to you, your family, and all the people that you have served, will be serving, and have served in the past, are right now. Looking forward to another exciting year going forward. And I'll let you say thank you.
Thank you to you as well. Thank you always for having me on. Thank you for the opportunity.
And
pleasure. Thank you to everyone will listen, will share, and will support us. Let us support one another. Let us support each other. And
absolutely.
Thank you.
Cesar's contact information is on the screen, and it's also shared out on whatever platform you're watching this replay live or on the replay. As always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace, my brother. Take care. And love to and especially love to the young one, the boss of the house. Okay, take care. All right, then, everybody. That is it. Last conversation 2023 by Dr. Vibe. Last conversation of Black Canada Talking by Dr. Vibe this year. Just saying this year. So want to say thanks everyone who watches or listens to this live on the replay, any of my platforms live on the replay. So a few things as we close out. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Subscribe and hit the notification button so you get notified of upcoming conversations. Also, follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And also, if you'd like to advertise on any of the platforms that I broadcast on, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. So as we close, you know what? One other thing, you can watch replays of this conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and also the Dr. Vibe Show website, the drvibeshow.com. That's it. Now, some things don't change. Even at the end of a year, the way we close out. So this is what we do. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Thank you, everybody, for, even if you watch me for 10 seconds over the many years that I've been doing this, it's appreciated, not taken for granted. Touch base with me. Love to have conversations offline with you all, and looking forward to an exciting 2024, because I won't be able to do it without you, and I do it through me for you. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good.
Listen.